What's some hard to swallow pills about relationships? By Ask Reddit.
Putting off ending things for fear of hurting someone's feelings is the worst possible idea. If the relationship isn't right and you know you don't want to be together, then sparing someone's feelings in the short term only leads to more pain later down the line. Be honest and front the horrible conversation.
This is something I'm struggling with right now. They are a great person and I don't want to hurt them, but I think my feelings have changed. It makes me sad and a little sick to my stomach to even think about hurting her.
I mean, what you said is not so different from love, as in caring for the other. Try asking yourself what changed and how. Our feelings are not so stable, and vary drastically depending on a number of things that often don't involve the question in hand. The point in doing this is to be sure of what the issue is. Is the problem something about her? About another person, like falling in love with someone else? Or is the issue in the dynamics of the relationship? Or even in yourself? Then, you can either explain everything to her or break up. Maybe you both can overcome this together. Maybe it's better to go separate ways. However, doing things that will hurt both of you based only on a perception of your abstract feelings will only cause you to regret rushing an important decision, even if it ends up being the right one.
This is great advice. I think I need to take a little bit of time to figure out the answer to this, cause I truly don't know what has changed.
You can also not have the conversation in one go. You can start by telling your partner that you have some specific concerns and talk about what they are. Then if you decide that you do want to end the relationship, you can have that conversation without blindsiding the other person.
Please just be honest and cut it off. The longer this goes on, the more of her life she'll have to dissect later. She's going to ask how long you've felt like this, you're going to tell her a while, and the more time that goes on, the more things she'll have to ask herself. Was that fake? He seemed like he was having such a good time, he was so loving, how do you fake that? You'll just be making it harder for her the more you wait.
You could do everything right and still lose.
That is not a weakness. That's life.
Picard Riker 2024. Wait, that was a Star Trek line?
Yup. Picard said it in TNG.
God, this is hard to hear. My ex left me, and reading this after giving it my all for 2 years and having left nothing for myself hurts like hell.
Dude, you got you left. In a good relationship, the other person adds to your happiness, doesn't become it. So while your ex is no longer in your life, you still got good old awesome you. Also, after leaving those relationships and experiencing better ones, the better ones don't require you to give it your all. They require you to be yourself, and yourself naturally wants to be your best for them. You got those to look forward to, which is nice. Sounds like you have quite a lot left for yourself.
Probably the best phrasing of this I've seen yet. Well said. It sure is hard to go from a really putty relationship where you're forced to rely on someone, to a relationship where you can actually be yourself, and where they actually want you to be yourself, too. I don't think I ever truly knew who I was until I found my wife, and she made me realize she actually wanted to get to know me.
Losing your identity within a relationship is easy to do. Finding it again isn't. Remember to keep your friends and hobbies.
After my last relationship ended, I felt guilty for not hurting. I was kind of happy, back in my garage, working on cars with my friends, took a few road trips, my phone was quiet. Pooh was cool.
Yup. I didn't even realize it, but I used to paint a lot. During my 7-year relationship, I didn't create a single thing, and in the 6 months since it ended I've completed 10 pieces.
Keeping your friends and hobbies is also good for the health of the relationship, not just in case it fails. It puts less pressure on the relationship to entertain and keep you happy, gives you space, a broader focus, and interesting things to talk about. It also helps you be you, who is the person your partner fell for in the first place.
I just got dumped by my ex. I couldn't do anything I liked. I couldn't watch the newest Pixar or Disney movie, play video games, or even watch sports. We had to do what she wanted, and it got to a point where I was always upset and direct with her, and she would never care enough. I also wasn't allowed to talk to my female best friend because we are both nerdy and discussed nerdy things. It bothered my ex to death that I never talked about nerd passions to her, but any time I tried she told me that she didn't care. If it wasn't about her or something we shared in common, then she never made an effort to talk to me about it.
At a certain point, you have to accept some particular negative parts of your partner's personality or move on. My husband is almost 50. We've been married for over 20 years. While he will continue to experience personal growth, there are parts of his personality that are likely to not ever change. The same is true for myself, of course.
In a good marriage, it helps to be a little deaf. Ruth Bader Ginsburg.
And have selective amnesia as well.
This helps with storytelling. Whenever my sir tells me a story she is happy about, I just let her tell it for the 10th time.
This. You either accept it without grudge, or if it's something you can't be flexible with, you move on. People who think they can't fix things about their partner are doomed to be in a constant state of disappointment.
Unrelated, but it made me think arguments. It is bad taste to bring up resolved arguments and keep holding it over your partner's head, especially if you've forgiven them.
If you're bringing it up, then you aren't over it and haven't forgiven them.
My wife and I struggled with this. Particularly myself. Not that I wanted to hold things over her, but there was a certain pattern I was trying to bring out that was causing me friction. It was ineffective. What worked was validating the current feeling and being objective and not accusatory when I expressed mine. It has taken some time and we are not perfect, but we have not argued like we had before in at least 2 years.
It took my husband and I a while to learn how to argue. Learning to trust that we were actually on each other's side even when angry or annoyed. Learning how to voice feelings and issues without making the other person feel attacked and defensive. Also learning not to argue with each other over pointless things when it was just that we were both stressed out over factors external to the relationship.
This is a tricky one. My ex-wife used to twist this on me when she repeatedly did the same disrespectful things, and then when I brought it up it was like, you only pretended to forgive me so you could hold it over my head. Like, no, I did forgive you, but this is like the 5th time it's happened and I'm pointing out a pattern. Maybe I'm the asshole though, lol. It's just as well I am now twice divorced and will probably never seek a LTR again. Can't get cheated on when you're single.
Oh, for sure. There are people who gaslight and whatnot. The purpose of validating the feelings and not being accusatory is supposed to be a method to break a possible legitimate pattern by allowing each other to empathize with the other.
This is exactly what has destroyed my current relationship. Unrealistic expectations, superficial forgiveness, hyperfocusing on the negativity in general, and passive-aggressive behavior.
If you keep bringing up forgiven arguments, then they have not been forgiven.
This is very true. My husband and I have a saying, you knew what you were getting into. When one of us starts getting annoyed with something that is just a fundamental part of who we are, our response is always, you knew what you were getting into. Again, we are always trying to grow, but when my husband gets mad that I am not good at cleaning, housekeeping, or I get annoyed that he goes overboard with planning for the future, we can remind each other that this is who we always have been.
When I told my father-in-law I was going to propose to his daughter, he said, you know what she's like.
My parents told my husband that they don't accept returns.
I actually overheard this exact conversation at a coffee shop last year. It was horrifying to listen to, but funny as an outsider, lol.
Yeah, my future father-in-law at one point said, I'm sure you've worked out by now that she can be a real bitch. Don't get me wrong, sometimes she can be beautiful. But sometimes it's just really hard to be around her. Pretty spot on, to be honest.
This is very true. My husband and I have a saying, you knew what you were getting into. My so and I have a similar phrase that we say, half jokingly, to light criticism. If you didn't want blank, you wouldn't have gotten a boyfriend, girlfriend. If you didn't want greasy handprints all over the house, you wouldn't have gotten a boyfriend. If you didn't want hair in your butt crack, you wouldn't have gotten a girlfriend. It's dumb, but sometimes I feel like the statement is a grounding reminder of what it's like to live with another human being.
I'm still trying to work out whose hair is in whose butt crack and why.
Long hair ends up everywhere. My butt crack, my partner's butt crack, sometimes I have to pull a strand out of the dog's butthole too, haha.
I use that saying too, along with, I know who I married. The first time I saw my now husband's bedroom, it scared me so badly that I ghosted him for a year. I'd never seen so much trash and junk on a floor in my life, and I nearly missed out on love and happiness because I ran away in terror at the idea of living with someone who could generate and live in that wreckage, but love won out. I married him anyhow, and I have to admit that he does keep surprising me by slowly getting better at tidying up after himself, which is wonderful, specifically because I wasn't expecting that to happen. I figured that tidying up after him is just a part of living with him, and that I loved him enough to make that trade-off. I used to pick up after him in the evenings, but one night I went to look around his gaming chair for loose trash and instead found an improvised trash can. When I established to the kids that dirty laundry goes in the laundry basket, husband started making an effort to also get his laundry in the basket, though I still find his socks all over the house. Finding that improvised trash can felt like watching Boss Bob Ross paint a happy little tree. Edit, no idea how this got so many updates and nobody corrected that typo, but it's fixed now.
Eventually, love is not being crazy in love all the time.
Love is a crock pot, not a deep fryer.
I thought this said, love is a crack pipe, which I think is also true.
People not realizing this is a huge cause for divorce, I believe. After the first year or two, things settle down and become normal. That's okay. A deeper love will form, but it's not going to be the crazy passionate puppy dog love it was at first. Things evolve and change.
I want to add, that's not to say that you can't have moments of puppy dog love later. You just have to actively create them. Buy a set of candles and toss some rose petals on a table for dinner with their favorite song. Draw them something cute. Sing them a stupid little song about how you're feeling. Hold hands when you walk into the grocery store. Set up a picnic at a park. Share some wine and watch a good movie. Moments don't have to naturally happen to be wonderful. Sometimes you can just make your own moment to remember forever.
Summed it up perfectly, but make your own moment really stands out. Well said.
Not too long after the start of COVID, I doodled a formal invite and menu to dinner for two for my wife, and made an at-home date of it. We were stuck at home, so we put the kids to bed, and I proceeded to chef my best for her. I couldn't cook before then to save my life. We didn't need a restaurant, and frankly it was better than most any other date we had together. Based purely on the focus on each other. More than a decade married and we still try to do the little things that stay memorable.
My wife and I have had to live long distance for the past few years because of work, and people always ask us how we manage. We always tell them basically the same advice. It's really just putting a foot forward and doing anything to feel connected. We will pick a movie or show to watch together through Netflix Party, or Teleparty now, and each order takeout or a pizza and have a long-distance movie night. Before COVID we would go to the movie theater the same week and watch the same show and talk about it. All these little things. None had to be huge gestures, but the act of including the other person and making them feel part of our daily life is what matters.
I read a book on this. Relationships are always dopaminergic at the start, that's to say it feels like AD whenever you see or think about your partner. That high inevitably fades for every couple, and the long-term relationships survive on much more mellow H&M molecules in your brain, which is more of a loving for your partner being there for you.
So, Forever 21 molecules are replaced by H&M molecules, which are later replaced by Lane Bryant molecules.
Who are you so wise in the ways of science?
A king must know these things.
All torrid molecules over here.
As I like to describe it, the excitement of a roaring bonfire at the beginning is replaced by the comforting warmth of a gentle burning hearth that you can go home to every day.
I've heard this before, but it's been 13 years and I'm still crazy in love with her all the time, so I'm not sure when this eventually will come.
My fiancé and I have been together close to 5 years now and I still feel this way, lol. We always joke that the honeymoon phase never ended for us, and I hope it never does. But that's not to say that our love for each other hasn't matured and grown and gotten deeper. I 100% appreciate him more as a human than I did 5 years ago, but I still get so giddy thinking about him coming home from work, lol.
22 years this month, but exactly the same. He texts me from work, says he misses my face. Texts me when he's leaving work, says he's speeding back to his lady. So many more things. Our love is amazing and I'm incredibly glad to have found him.
Hold on to that, man. I was with a chick for 9 years I wasn't in love with. My fiancé on the other hand, I want that sort of crazy love forever and will 100% work for it.
Just because you love someone doesn't mean you should be with them. A relationship needs more than love.
A person I know really needs to hear this. They insisted too much on being in something with me when I told them that it wasn't going to work. We wanted opposite types of relationships, that in the end it all ended pretty bad. Some people just think that love is going to make things magically work, without even considering that sometimes people that love each other are just incompatible to be together.
You should not be anxious about the relationship all the time. You shouldn't be stressed about if they love you or if they're going to leave you or if they're out cheating on you or what they're thinking. It shouldn't be a major source of stress. In fact, if it's a good partnership, both of your lives should be easier. The old adage about relationships being hard work isn't really accurate. Being with them shouldn't be hard or a battle. It's more accurate to say that a good relationship takes effort, like you should both be striving for open communication, handle conflict in a healthy way, make each other happy, but it shouldn't be exhausting or hard or stressful to be with them. They should be a source of comfort. Edit. Some people have pointed out that this isn't necessarily the case for people with anxiety or other mental health issues. And you're totally right, it's not that anxiety is necessarily a sign of a bad relationship. But if you're feeling a lot of stress and anxiety about a relationship, it is a sign that something is wrong. If you feel stress because your partner is vague or mean or withholding, that's an issue. And if your partner is good to you but you can't shake the feeling that something is wrong, that's something to talk about with them and potentially get help for. Every adult human could benefit from therapy. I guess what I'm trying to say is that being with your partner shouldn't make you feel worse, it shouldn't make you feel bad. Edit 2, user at @it summed up what I was trying to say quite well. I personally have ADHD and one of my symptoms causes me to be anxious and stressed basically 24/7, and that tends to lead towards worries that my current so is just gonna give up on my insanity and leave. But when I compare how I feel with him, vs how I felt with my emotionally abusive ex, there's a world of difference. With my ex, that was the only thing on my mind. I changed my patterns and habits just to be around him and make him happy so he wouldn't leave me. With my current so, I don't have to do any of that. I stress about it more often than the average person does, but I can go days on end without having a thought. That's the difference.
I definitely think it takes some work to maintain a good relationship, but you're right about the fact that it shouldn't become a major source of work and stress. That's just a sign that both people simply aren't compatible at all. A simple rule of thumb is that when the relationship starts to become more of a chore to maintain, and gives you anxiety for an extended period of time, it's time to make a change. Of course there will be rough patches, but issues should be addressed right there and then, and not be allowed to build up until the relationship explodes.
They aren't going to magically know you're upset with them. They aren't going to read your passive-aggressive signs. They aren't going to pick up on that. Be direct. If you are upset, talk to your partner about it. Not your friends. Not you parents. Not strangers on the internet, your partner.
Not communicating can lead to rifts that never seal.
Not communicating leads to posting on r/relationship_advice and hoping a bunch of internet strangers can either solve your problem or tell you what you want to hear without having to just go talk to your partner. Because that's scary and might not maintain the idea that you're fine and the other person is the source of your problems.
I feel attacked.
And Ra's answer to everything is, red flag your partner is an abusive gaslighting narcissist, end the relationship, go no contact and call the effing cops.
To be fair, most of the posts on Rara, my 19F husband, 54 meters, have been dating Fox 6 years, and every time I cook him dinner, he eats it by slowly effing our neighbor on the dinner table while shoveling food into his mouth while making direct eye contact with me. How do I nicely ask him to stop being late for dinner?
Story of a single fight between a couple and no other context about their relationship, divorce.
Or R. Amy the asshole, my boyfriend left the toilet seat up so I deep fried his cat. Iada, NTA. He had it coming, sister.
Oh come on, we both know the typical AITA post is more like I work 3 jobs and take care of our 6 kids, my husband just plays video games and flirts with my sister. I asked him if he could bring me a glass of water from the kitchen he was in as I was breastfeeding and doing laundry at the same time. He blew up at me and is now staying with my sister. AITA.
Also, title, I yelled at my sister in front of a group of people for bringing her boyfriend to dinner while he was wearing inappropriate attire. AITA details in the post. He was wearing KKK robes and hood.
That's awful and I'm laughing out loud at work.
Haha, I can back this one up.
To add to this, not all arguments are worth having. Yes, communication is extremely important and key to a healthy relationship, but so is trying the things you nitpick. People online will try to make you believe that every little thing needs to be addressed, and if you don't want to address it, you're living a lie. But those people are either 1, in a complete fantasy relationship, or 2, have never been in a meaningful one. I usually refer to the Scrubs episode with Mandy Moore as an example for people struggling with this concept.
People love that never go to bed angry advice. I believe in the opposite. Sleep on it. If it's still an issue for you in the morning, then you should talk about it. I swear 90% of the time I wake up and think, why was I so mad again?
Shout out to you, Lord Octal, for this quote. If you think everyone hates you, you probably need to sleep. If you hate everyone, you probably need to eat.
This. Whenever you get angry, most of the time it's because you are tired, hungry or lonely and don't realize it. Check those 3 first. If it's not one of those 3, you have something to unpack, but a majority of the time it is. I'm not wise, my therapist taught me that one.
And sometimes if you're hungry, you're simply thirsty. So go down that line too.
Yup, you can be pissed at someone and still love them. It's not like your relationship is over the second you get angry over something.
Yeah, it's a very young relationship thing to think every moment must be pure bliss or else your partner is a horrible person. But when you are in a real long-term relationship and live together and making life decisions that affect each other's lives, you will occasionally get on each other's nerves. Sometimes sleep on it or take a walk or whatever and come back and you're over it, and arguing only would have turned something that was basically nothing into a major issue.
This is such an important thing for people to learn.
Once I was half asleep when my husband came to bed and immediately started hiccuping. I got so angry. I was yelling at him about how inconsiderate it was to come to bed when I was sleeping and keep hiccuping, and that he needed to sleep in the guest room. So angry. The next morning I woke up and went, wow, that was excessive. I'm sorry. That being said, we are pretty decent at resolving the stupid poo in real time, but the serious stuff we don't go to sleep until it feels okay. There have been plenty of 1 to 2 a.m. nights where we've had to stick it out to feel okay the next day.
I know I probably shouldn't be laughing at this, but you getting angry over someone for having hiccups is pretty hilarious. Considering it wasn't even his fault, lol.
I kind of get it. When I'm tired and I get woken up at the wrong time, I'm already in a bad mood. Mix that with my brain still being all foggy and I can imagine saying something I might regret under normal circumstances.
I'd like to mention that I actually have a serious problem with this. I agree 100% with your sentiment, but this can actually cause issues for me because I physically can't maintain an upset state. Eventually I just get tired and deflate completely, and then it's not a problem anymore. That seems great, but the problem is that it happens regardless of whether the issue is worth being upset about or not. I actually ended up being in an abusive relationship for far too long because I'd be upset about how I was treated, step back, be tired, an hour later, or asleep later, I was fine. It took so long to get out of that solely because I let things go easily and end up tolerating them without even consciously thinking about it. It's been something I have to actively think through and question whether it's worth being upset about. Again, not saying I disagree with your idea because it can definitely prevent long pointless arguments, but man. Just want to make sure people know there are absolutely necessary exceptions to that policy. Edit. Hey, anyone who's worried about my issues, it's okay. My own abusive poo is well resolved years ago and I'm doing well. Already plan to talk to a psych about weird emotional processing stuff and plenty more besides, since it seems like it would be positive albeit not necessary for me to do okay at life. Thanks for anyone who's been concerned, I really appreciate it. You're all really sweet and I hope that you can put that sweetness towards people that are close to you and who care about you too. And LT, 3.
Yeah, being upset is very draining to me. Eventually I just get tired and don't care anymore. There are exceptions to every rule. Abuse is definitely an exception to this one.
Thank you. I forget what I'm mad and forgive very easily. I haven't had a serious relationship yet, but I know knowing my own emotions is going to be a problem. Alexithymia to make things less clear how I'm feeling.
I often ask myself, is this causing an actual problem or is it simply something I disagree with? 80% of the time it's just a difference in opinion that's not worth starting an argument about. The other 20% of the time when there's an actual problem, it becomes more constructive to think in terms of how do I address the problem, instead of how do I tell my partner that they're wrong.
Yes. Sometimes you don't have to die on the hill of did my partner mean to use a short tone with me after they just arrived home after a really tough day at work * or whatnot. Argue values, genuine disrespect, etc. But let the tiny things go.
10,000% yes, I didn't realize I was feeling mildly resentful at my husband for not helping with housework more until a friend pointed it out to me. So I told him I needed help because I was struggling. And he is. All I had to do was tell him I needed help and I didn't want to have to ask for it.
Yep. Can't assume that your partner is a mind reader. Both my wife and I are guilty of this. She also likes to claim that many things she thinks I should know are common sense. But my opinion is that people often use themselves as a benchmark for what constitutes common sense.
Damn son, that last sentence is one of those Reddit comments you use for the rest of your life. Ty.
This. And here's the thing. If they try to reach out and you ignore that, your failure to communicate can lead to your partner communicating elsewhere. They're not going to just sit in those feelings when you're acting passive-aggressive. They're going to reach out to someone they trust. No one wants to feel alone in a relationship. That isn't to say you need to immediately talk about it. But you need to vocalize if you need some time to cool down.
How am I gonna get 4K upvotes on our IATA then?
by making stuff up like everyone else.
You can't look for someone else to be your other half, you have to learn how to be a whole person on your own. This means being able to take care of your own emotional needs, too.
Underrated comment here. You can't be responsible for someone else's happiness. My wife and I enhance each other's joy. Example. She loves going to concerts and often my schedule means I can't go, or occasionally the tickets are expensive and it's someone I'm not a big fan of, so she goes without me. But if I can, I go, and if the tickets are cheap even if I'm not a fan, I go. She likes it when I'm there and says it's better, but she still has fun without me. In a good relationship you help lessen the bad and increase the good.
I so deeply hope that one day I can have a relationship with someone like you and your wife have.
I'm lucky. I knew her for years and had a crush on her, but she was married. Guy is a total ass. We got together right after she left him. I was 27 and she was 30 with 2 kids. We had one extreme rough spot for a year, but other than that it's been great. I always say I'll take the worst day with her over the best day without her. Still takes work, and the bad year was partly because I was arrogant and thought I had it all figured out. I didn't and still don't, but I've got a handle on a lot of it. Strangely, I'd kind of given up. I'd only ever had one serious relationship that was pretty bad and a couple of non-starters, and for some reason thought I'd just never find anyone. Looking back, I was an idiot. I spent too much time worrying for nothing. Just be patient and don't obsess over finding it, just be ready for when it happens and live your life.
That's interesting because I have a very similar relationship, and I had also given up before meeting her. To be honest though, I think the giving up part is what led me to focusing more effort on becoming a whole person myself instead of trying to find what I lacked in someone else. I also think that giving up is what kept me from chasing poor relationships instead of leaving myself open for the right person. Giving up is actually the most likely reason I have such a good relationship right now.
You and your other half aren't poo compared to 2 whole people working together.
Your partner should be kind to you and vice versa. It's not okay for your partner to scream at you or curse you out or deliberately hurt your feelings. This isn't to say that it never ever happens, we all are human and occasionally we mess up. But if they are not consistently kind to you, if they aren't sorry when they are mean, and if they repeat it, then that's a problem. If you wouldn't accept the behavior from a friend, then you absolutely should not accept it from a partner. The idea that it's normal for your partner to be mean to you is so freaking bad, and I've seen way too many people accept crappy relationships because they think love means never having to say sorry and that getting screamed at is acceptable.
If you wouldn't accept the behavior from a friend, then you absolutely should not accept it from a partner. I think that's a very good rule of thumb. Just because it's a romantic relationship shouldn't mean you have to put up with abusive behavior.
I broke up with someone because they treated me and others in a way that I wouldn't put up with from a friend. Realizing they were behaving like that and I was putting up with it was all I needed to let go.
Lots of people are actually looking for contradictions in relationships. As Bo Burnham put it, you want someone insanely hot, but not someone obsessed with their looks. You want someone sensitive but not weak. A lot of people want someone who won't use them for anything, but who they can use themselves to fulfill their own needs or desires. I think the worst part of growing up for me has been the utter realization that lots of people want to use who they can to fit their own ends. It's not exactly always malicious, just practical. You grow more sensible as you age, and so you're less willing to tolerate relationships of any kind where you don't derive some sort of benefit. The result for me has been that I'm less trusting and more guarded, which only hinders finding genuine connections in love or friendship.
I love that you just cited Bo Burnham.
Now all I hear in my head is a good boy, a bad boy, a good bad boy, a half good, half bad, half boy.
Now, you might think that this girl only exists in your mind. But she's real. But last week, she died.
You might think your decay is a gift, I promise it's not.
Yeah, it's all about balance. It's healthy to want to get something out of relationship, as long as you understand you have to put something in as well. It's up to everyone to decide what they're willing to accept, and what they will not tolerate. I've made the mistake of being too selfless in the past, and slowly but surely, people will abuse kindness. You can never totally relax in a relationship and trust your partner not to start cutting corners. It's all a subtle balance between giving and taking, which depends on a lot of factors. It takes a lot of awareness, experience, and the right partner to get the balance right.
People keep changing as their life goes on, and there are no guarantees that you and your partner will change in compatible ways. Someone can be your soulmate today, but in a year the person they've become may not be the soulmate of the person you've become. While you shouldn't simply give up on a relationship the moment you hit a rough patch, you also shouldn't let a happy past keep you in a miserable present.
Works for close friendships as well. Well put.
Cutting off some of my oldest friends because of what they've become was the hardest thing to do, but I noticeably felt better mentally after no longer having them in my life. It's tough, but you gotta do what you gotta do.
I got kicked out of a friend group because I wasn't sufficiently toxic. I was becoming less negative and they were becoming more negative. Better for me in the long run, but at the time I was like, damn.
Damn, how'd that go down? What was their reasoning?
TLDR, they were joking about killing, hurting someone. I pointed out that was F-ed. They said I was bullying them and they were just joking and cut me loose. And by that I mean stalked me and looked for ways to hurt me. I won't elaborate on that. It was actually traumatizing. Ended up moving and getting a gun. Yeah.
Well, I hope you are doing better and aren't under constant threat.
Knowing when to let go of people is debatably one of the toughest lessons you can learn. Sometimes you can really love someone from the bottom of your heart and know it's still better for you, them, or both of y'all to let go. When people grow, they inevitably run the risk of leaving some of their loved ones behind, since not everyone is willing or ready to grow at the same pace.
That last sentence sums it up. Which is why codependent relationships are such a hindrance in people's lives. When you lose your individual identity and make your relationship into your new ground, you're in for a world of trouble. People not making progress in life, feeling stuck, getting depressed, but refusing to move on because of the fear of how I am going to make it on my own. If you can't live and be fulfilled on your own, you're not ready for a healthy relationship.
There was a marriage prep guide that said something to the effect of you and your spouse are like entwined trees. You want the branches to touch, but if they're too close, one isn't going to get enough sun and you'll both perish. There needs to be a fine balance of togetherness and separation. You're allowed to have different hobbies, friends, time apart, etc. It's healthy.
That's a beautiful analogy.
I hate the idea that a relationship ending in a divorce or breakup means it's a failed relationship. People have too narrow a view of what a successful relationship means.
Yes. I say this every time I am asked about my divorce. 10 years married felt good to us both and we're still friends to this day.
Thank you for watching. We upload new videos every day, so be sure to come back for more fun. Please consider liking and subscribing if you enjoyed the video.